Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, agents. I am Manikar, and this here is a Let's Talk on the Division. Tonight, we are going to hit up everyone's favorite meta in the Dark Zone, the Tacticians Authority set. Now, I think as gear sets go, this is probably one of the most well-rounded gear sets, and it's mostly due to the fact that its bonuses that are geared towards what it was meant to do. I personally don't know of a better gear set that, doesn't need to be remade. This thing doesn't need to be remade in any sort of fashion. I like all of the gear, except maybe skill haste could be better. But in fact, almost all of the 1.1 gear sets were pretty well rounded, and it wasn't until 1.2 that it seemed that they were kind of going through and just throwing the gear sets out there, and they weren't really on par with the ones we got in 1.1. At least I don't know too many people that were like, that's the gear set that I need to replace my Sentry's Call with, or my Strikers. Now, one of the better thoughts I had was to somehow make this gear set more balanced toward what it was, and not to take away from it, but remove the meta of the Tactician. Actually, let's go ahead and scrap this. The Tacticians Authority, the little Freudian slip, really doesn't need to be reworked, and I can't see them actually building on the idea of making a gear set bonus that goes higher than what it already is for the 4 bonus set. Let's talk about how we can fix Stamina and Toughness, because now that I'm thinking about it with Tactician and the meta that's in the Dark Zone, we really need to focus on fixing what is wrong with those values. Now, this is probably a change that many people haven't even thought about at this level, and so it's probably going to be met with some opposition. My proposal here is to actually do away with hit points altogether. That's right, get rid of it and make toughness based on your armor value. So your toughness is only based on the armor value that you have. Now, hold on with me right here, and we're going to work through this, because I think we can come to some common ground where we adjust armor values based on the class you're playing. First thing we need to do is modify the enemy damage to be unified in scale with the hit points that are standardized, like most games, at 100%, because there are people out there that actually don't listen to what I'm saying, and they automatically jump to, if we don't have hit points, Manny Carl, we're just going to go ahead and get killed by these guys because they're just so powerful. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is everything's going to scale based on the hit points. So we're going to bring everybody down to the same level. So if we didn't change anything and we just changed the hit points, everything would basically seem the way it is right now. So we're going to go ahead and change this because we need to simplify things, and that's going to be one of our buzzwords for right now. So the first thing we need to do is modify the enemy damage and with the hit points, so they're standardized like most games at 100%, which let's just say the max hit points for us is going to be 100,000 hit points. Let's just go ahead and say that's our max. You can't go below, you can't get more, you can't get less. The enemy damage needs to scale to that. Now, there should be a few builds that take this into consideration as to how durable you are. The first would be a tank class, where you put on gear and you kind of gear yourself toward the armor, where your armor can go up to like 90% mitigation of weapons, and you are basically a tank class, and that is your goal, is you're walking up and you're taking all the damage while your enemies or your friends are going ahead and shooting everybody else. This is not the solo class that you want to be. Your DPS and electronics would suffer because the point you put, all the points that you put into this class would make it so you took approximately, let's go ahead and just 300,000 hit points of damage in addition to the hit points that you already have. So basically, you're tanking 400,000 hit points of damage. Now, that's a massive amount of damage. The middle class would be more of a balanced class, and it'd be a combination of mid-range armor and DPS, or mid-range armor and skill power. Essentially, in this class build, you are taking an additional 200,000 hit points of damage. And finally, if you want to run just a DPS or a skill build, or a glass cannon, or whatever it is that's just skill, your armor would allow you to take an additional 100,000 additional hit points for a total of 200,000 hit points of damage that you would take. This would create a standardized chart of how much damage you would take, and effectively creating classes based on your chosen playstyle. So the standard base for everyone would start at somewhere around 50,000 DPS, 100,000 hit points, and 10,000 electronics. Once you got gear, it would be, if you're well, let's just go on. We'll talk about this. We'll explain it all and how it works. Now, these numbers are not the same ones that you have in the game right now. We're adjusting them based on the max number of hit points in the game that you can get, which is 400,000. Based on that, max DPS would be 200,000 DPS. The max electronics would be somewhere around 40,000 DPS. This is what I'm adjusting everything to. This is not what's in the game right now. This is what I'm adjusting everything to. This is the max that you would have. So you would max out your DPS at 200,000 DPS based on the fact that the max stamina that you could get, or max toughness that you could get, is 400,000. Let me reiterate that: 100,000 hit points with 300,000 hit points of armor. So that is the base max stat that you can get, and then we'll have minimums as well, and it's all going to have to do with your play style and how you choose to put points into everything, and it would follow somewhere between those numbers. The math in the current system is too wonky. It doesn't it doesn't make a lot of sense. DPS needs to only be calculated on two things. I don't care about all of the extra crap that they put in there. I want to know what the base damage of a gun is and the user's firearm number. Those are the two things that matter. That's the only thing that should be calculated into the DPS. So if your gun damage was 10,000 damage and your DPS would be 60,000 based on 50,000 DPS base stat, there isn't a need to calculate in critical hits, critical hit damage, accuracy, and all the other crap that they're throwing in there or anything like that. The only thing you need to know is how much damage you're dealing at any given point. Now, to be clear, this is just an oversimplification of the current stats right now. There is already a minimum and maximum you can get. You just can't see it, and you really have no idea what it could be potentially because of all of the mitigating factors used to calculate these things. All I'm asking is that we kind of simplify everything, because right now what I'm telling you is already in the game. It's just unknown because you actually can't get the minimum or the maximum to figure it out, because there's no way to do that. There's no way to figure out the minimum and the maximum because the calculations are just so off the wall that, really it doesn't matter. The numbers I put on it don't matter. The main change is to standardize the numbers rather than use a bunch of hocus pocus math to factor in the numbers and then change them based on what gun you're holding. I would rather see a base damage number for DPS rather than see a number that fluctuates based on what skills or abilities I'm using at the time. What really bothers me is when you have a base stat and then you switch your gun and the DPS goes up or down, and then you re-equip that gun and it goes back to what it was before. We need standardized numbers and not randomly fluctuating stats. The same goes for armor value. Just give everyone the same number of hit points and just make armor the mitigating factor in that. This way, everyone knows they have 100,000 hit points. They don't have to recalibrate and do all this crap with it. This gives them one less layer to think about, and then they can start messing around with their armor only and other factors. In fact, make it so each piece of gear you have gets the standard number on it, and only the backpack and the vest have adjustable armor rating. Having 50, or having 500 armor on my holster isn't really going to do me any good unless I get shot in the hip. There's no point to put armor on something that wouldn't really have armor on it. Now, this is all hypothetical, and when it comes down to it, the statistical composition is probably too much for most people. There's a lot of math that goes into building the perfect build, but there is a lot of false assumptions when it occurs due to the fluctuation based on skills, mods, talents, and so on. There is a much simpler way to do it, and it would be great to move into a simpler direction with managing a lot of the equipment where I don't have a thing that says 500,000 DPS because I have accuracy really high on everything. This goes toward my thoughts on keeping things consistent across the board. Start breaking down minor gear attributes on weapons into single categories. We don't need exotic resistance, fire resistance, disrupt resistance. We don't need all that stuff. It should just be in one damage resistance category. The abilities bonus rolls on gear should be standardized as well. When it comes to gear rolls, the minor attribute and ability bonuses aren't even considered when you're re-rolling items against the main stats and the major attributes. Why not let the player choose from a group of 3 that they want to put on that piece of gear? In fact, each piece of gear should have bonuses that would be deal for that piece of gear. Chest piece would be armor and damage resistance. Glove would have some sort of weapon accuracy or weapon damage, critical hit chance, critical hit damage because it's directly impacting how you're shooting the gun. Backpack would be armor, skill power, whatever else. And you could increase your whatever. It doesn't matter. You could increase how much the backpack holds. That doesn't matter at this point. The point is we need things simplified and broken down into a much easier to digest setting. Yes, there are people who like to crunch the numbers, but they're in the minority, and there is something to be said about making things simple and getting into the game faster rather than spending time at your computer or spending time at recalibration trying to figure out if 1.5 critical hit chance is better than 13.5 exotic damage resistance or damage resilience in the long run. So that's my time. Thanks for hanging out and listening to this. These are my ideas on the Division. As always, please don't take these things too seriously. They are just ideas. They have very little weight with anyone. This is just really my way of getting information out to the community, and who knows, someone may eventually look at it and pick up on the idea and use a piece here and there and make it work with another idea. The point is to get ideas out into the community and just let them marinate so that hopefully something good comes out of it and makes the game better for everyone. That's really what these videos are about. I'm not trying to take away from the game. I'm not trying to make rogues suck. I'm not trying, it's all part of the game. And at the end of the day, I just want to make this game better. I want it to be fixed. In all honesty, if they just fixed the bugs, I'd be happy and we could go back to bitching and moaning about the things that actually really matter, like people coming up and ganking you in the Dark Zone. We can go back to talking about that, but that's not even the major problem right now. The whole game is the major problem. So we want to get back to the things that we can piss and moan about later. So that's really what it is. If you found this video informative, interesting, amusing, please drop a like on it. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, consider subscribing to our channel as we try to put one of these out every day, and you could be notified as to when we first drop it. If you follow me on Twitter, you actually know ahead of time, because when I press the little save button, a little note goes out on Twitter and you learn about my new video about 30 seconds to maybe a minute or two ahead of everyone else, and then you get to go in and type first on the video. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter really. You want to subscribe, that's all your business. I'm not in this for the subscribers. I'm not in this for the views. I'm in this to bring you guys the community information that you guys need and want and listen to, and be able to debate this stuff with you guys. And I welcome disagreements to my opinions, because my opinion is just one person. I am not the almighty powerful that's going to make the decisions in this game. I'm just putting out ideas, and nobody's going to take one idea and just run with it. They're going to take pieces of it, they're going to think about it, and it might trigger something in them, and the game's going to end up being better than what it was. And that's the whole purpose of all of this stuff. But I love every person out there that views these, that subscribes. It doesn't even matter if you're a subscriber. I love the viewers. I love everything about it. And I love it when people message me and I get to talk to them about the game, because we both share that in common. So thank you very much for all the people out there that have stuck with me through this entire season of doing all of these videos and stuff like that. I know that, it's been hard being a Division fan as of late, but things are getting better and I have a lot of hope for the future. So until then, for all of us here at the Division Let's Talk, I am Mountie Carl, and we'll see you in tomorrow's video. Agent out.